Hey, what's going on, y'all? This is another Executive Mindset. I know it's been a minute, but I had to come tap in real quick about the Shedeur Sanders situation, man. If you've been keeping up with the pod or listening to any my perspective about anything, I think highly of his dad, Coach Prime. I think me and rapping back and forth about some of his accomplishments and him going to Colorado and all this stuff, and I've always spoke highly of Shedeur as well. I think Shedeur is one of the best quarterbacks, was one of the best quarterbacks in the country. I remember seeing him freshman year at JSU. I think one of they had some game on TV back in the day when he was a freshman, and his accuracy then, it popped out to me. I was like, oh man, this kid got a little arm. He's accurate, so I always thought he had it. So as of this recording right now, he still didn't get drafted in day 2. And so now we're in day 3, rounds 4 through 7. And so I'm assuming he'll get drafted by somebody. And it was always a pipe dream talking about him going to the Cowboys and seeing if we would have even had a high enough pick to even get him. And him still being available right now, going into the 4th round, is pretty crazy. Like him getting not being drafted in the 1st round, yeah, it was surprising, but okay, you can see it because you would think within the first 10 or so picks in the next round, somebody would pick him up. But, that didn't happen. And so the quarterbacks that got picked ahead of him so far are Jackson Dart from Ole Miss, some cat from Louisville, Tyler Show. New Orleans picked him up, and New Orleans was a team that a lot of people were, saying that he could go there because of Derek Carr's situation. They don't really have an adequate backup like that, and so this guy they got this guy from Louisville, and then Jalen Milroe from Alabama. He went, I think, last night to the Seattle Seahawks, and then the Cleveland Browns, which was another team that they were projecting Shedeur to go to. After all the picks and they traded back down from number 2, they went ahead, I think, in the 3rd round and picked up Oregon's Dylan Gabriel from Oregon instead of Shedeur. So yeah, it's kind of wild, right? And so I want to give my perspective on it because I do think I maybe would have picked him over Cam Ward, just for my taste and what I see. But I get the why everybody picked Cam over Shedeur. He pops out more so than Shedeur as far as athleticism, his record in college, and just kind of his whole backstory and all that stuff. So I get that. But I do want to say, I said all that, just kind of set up a couple of things that I think that I thought Shedeur probably could have did better in this whole process, right? Because although I think he's going to be in the NFL, he's going to be a really good NFL player and quarterback. I think he handled his situation. Obviously, hindsight is 2020, but I do think he handled the situation. He could have handled it better, right? I think he made a mistake not doing that Senior Bowl or the East-West Shrine Bowl or whatnot and going to the combine, kind of making himself unavailable, right? And so even though most top prospects in the draft, they don't do those things now and stuff like that, I think if you look at the context of his whole career and kind of what, transpired at the end, the game against BYU to end his career in the bowl game, he did not have a good game. That was not a good lasting impression, right? Because the TCU game that they had a year or so ago, like that's so far removed, right? And so, you can't just have that tape and not look at the latest tape of what's going on in that BYU game that they lost to in that bowl game. He did not look good, right? And so I think when you look at things in perspective, right? Like Shedeur is a real good NFL prospect, right? He's not great or elite, into a lot of people's eyes. He's very good, not really great or elite at necessarily the things that pop out on tape. And so I do think he kind of takes some of his bravado and his swag from his dad. And so, which is fine, but I think he has to he can't lean so much into that because his dad was a corner, right? And so that whole thing, I don't think it really mattered. He could do it's just two totally different situations. The athleticism with Prime was just otherworldly. Like we've never seen anything like that before. And so him being I want to say as arrogant as some people say, but I really think he's confident. It's like it can rub people the wrong way. Plus, added to, you're not great or elite, so to speak, right? And so that's the thing. And I think if he went to the combine and killed and, really showed people that, he wasn't hiding and that, it's right here, like, I think it might have did well. And so, and some of the people talking about his interviews and that he was, cocky, was a brash and stuff, like, we could go and just use the race card and be like they just don't like his dad and not like this. But I mean, truth be told, I thought a lot of people in the NFL, as far as executives and stuff, like Dion, right? I think Prime had some issues with the media, some media people within the NFL and stuff like that. Not necessarily people within the house, coaches, executives, and stuff like that. So the narrative of people trying to say that is his because of they didn't like him. I'm just like, I think Dion was fairly beloved that I heard within the NFL and stuff. I know media people felt a different way, but that has nothing to do with the people that are making the decisions, right? And so I saw a couple reports of interviews that they had with Shedeur, and they wasn't glowing. A few of them wasn't glowing. They thought he was dismissive in a case, and and stuff like that. And so I just think you have to have balance, right? Because you saying Shedeur needs to be himself, and he got to do like you got to be yourself, but then also you're also interviewing for a job, a multi-million dollar job at that. Yep. So even in my case, you're having interviews with different people and stuff, and so you want to be you, but then you also need to know the context of what you really need to do in order to get the job. Now, once you get the job, now okay, let's loosen up a little bit more. Let's ease on our personality and do what we do. And I don't think Shedeur read the room, as far as when it comes to that, because it's like, bro, like you're a quarterback. You're going to be the face of a franchise, right? And so you're not a Cam Ward or a Cam Newton or a Jaden Daniels or anybody like that the tape was just super explosive, right? Like you have things that, can't be taught, and the way kind of Shedeur has been carrying himself, you would think he has some of those explosive, unteachable things on film that is just going to be undeniable. You're going to have to draft me, whether you like it or not, because I'm just that great, right? I'm just that different. I'm just not like anybody else in the last 10 years. And he's not, even though he's a really good prospect, he's not that, right? And so that's why I was like, he need to reel it back some, because as good of a prospect that he is, he's not great or elite enough to carry himself that way to certain coaches or executives and them, you know what I'm saying? Because it's like, yeah, you good, but you ain't like that. And so, and another thing is Coach Prime and stuff, like he's been with his dad pretty much his whole career, from junior high, youth football to high school and to college, right? And so the force field that comes with his dad and everything, he has not had an experience to be around anything other than that. And so I could see some NFL teams be like, well, I don't know how he'll react when his daddy's not on his side, when he doesn't have that, when he's not doesn't have that that comfortable environment like that with his dad and other factors, right? And it's like, how will he be? Because all we've seen is kind of the perfect storm situation with him being with his dad, him, having that comfortable environment, being coached like that, like so. Not saying it's an excuse, but I'm like, I think it's reasonable to look at like, hey, I don't know how he would be without his dad and his dad not being in the building with him every day, and how would he respond? Like, and so, and then at the end, also, he's had a 13-12 record while he was at Colorado, right? So it's not like he just killed on that front. You know what I mean? A lot of questionable games, a lot of holding the ball too long and doing and taking unnecessary sacks. So this is not an excuse to tell. I have no idea why they waited this long to draft him, but I'm just giving certain things that I think that maybe he should have thought about or really look at, because he's not a great or elite of enough prospect to kind of be as brash and dismissive as he is, right? And so, and you have to look at those factors too, because we don't know how he'll be, kind of without his dad there. We have no evidence. We have no experience in seeing. Now we can assume, okay, he's going to be great regardless, but his dad, like, he's a big of a force in the coaching industry as he was maybe even on the field, like polarizing, being an influence and do like, and so for him to say I've heard him say that, wherever I went, the culture shifted, which is true. But then also, you also had your dad behind you, which your dad was such a polarizing figure that you just can't give that credit to yourself, right? You have to give it, like, a lot of it to your dad as well, because without him, the culture wouldn't have shifted as much as it did. Not saying Shedeur had no credit, given to him for the culture thing, but he also had a generational talent in Travis Hunter with him, all his 4 years. Like, you know what I'm saying? So, like I said, it could be different. I have no clue why he hasn't been drafted yet going into day 3, but I do think that the things that I mentioned were interesting and need to be taken accounted for, because that he's Coach Prime's son, but he's at quarterback and he's not as great or elite as a prospect as I think he puts in his head. And so, but the way others look at him, it can be a little different, man. Tell me what y'all think, man. Do y'all think that Shedeur should have waited this long to be drafted? Or do you think it's, something different? I try to stay away from the whole race thing, even though it may play a part in it. I do think Shedeur, need to take a look in the mirror, though. Take a look in the mirror, and, everybody just ain't always hating on you all the time, right? And that can be for all of us. Everybody ain't always hating. Like, what can we do to be like, hey, these are the things that I can control. What could I have done better? Like, I think that's what Shedeur kind of needs to look at now. Don't take the hater card and all the stuff like that. Like, look within yourself and be like, hey, are there some things that I could have did better or could have done better? And I think I mentioned a few things there, man. But y'all, let me know, y'all. Until next time, salute.